Most people believe that during this time, the body slows down, that organs come to rest. But the truth is the opposite. While you are not eating, your liver actually begins to work in earnest. And the frightening part is this: most modern people have never allowed their liver to do what it was evolutionarily designed to do. The liver is one of the most complex organs that evolution has ever produced. It performs over 500 vital functions. It detoxifies your blood. It regulates hormones. It decides whether your body stores sugar or burns fat. But here is an uncomfortable truth. Today, nearly 1 in 3 adults suffers from fatty liver disease, including people who are not overweight. Not because of alcohol, not because of a single bad meal, but because the liver exists in a world where it is never allowed to stop working. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks in between. The liver is constantly busy processing food, but hardly ever regenerating itself. To understand what fasting really does to the liver, we need to turn back time, back to the moment when the last meal ends. The first 4 hours after the last meal are nothing special for the liver. It knows this well. Glucose from food flows into the bloodstream. Insulin levels rise, like a guard ordering the cells to open their doors. Energy goes in. Store what is in excess. The liver now takes on the role of a central warehouse. It collects excess glucose and converts it into glycogen, a quickly accessible energy reserve. But this storage space is limited. Once it is full, the liver begins to do something else. It converts the excess into fat, not out of malice, but out of efficiency. In this phase, the body lives in a state of abundance. Energy is readily available. Saving is not necessary. And that is precisely why, during fasting, almost nothing changes in these first hours. The liver is still working to deal with the consequences of the last meal. The real switch has not yet begun. 4 to 8 hours after the last meal, the internal balance begins to shift. Insulin levels slowly decline. Another hormone moves into the foreground, glucagon. Its message is clear. No new energy is coming. Time to use the reserves. Now the liver opens its depot. Stored glycogen is broken down and converted into glucose to keep blood sugar stable, especially for the brain. This is not an emergency. This is a planned process. This is how the human body has functioned for tens of thousands of years, between the hunt and the meal, between success and failure. The liver was always the buffer between hunger and survival. In this phase, many people notice the first signals: a mild feeling of hunger, inner restlessness, sometimes a drop in concentration. But this is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign that control is slowly shifting from insulin to the liver. The body is relearning how to supply itself. 8 to 12 hours after the last meal, a decisive phase begins. The liver's glycogen stores are noticeably depleted. Fast fuel is running out. And right here, the liver faces a choice: continue hoping for sugar, or switch to something deeper, more stable, and available long term. The answer is fat. The liver sends signals to fat tissue to release stored fatty acids. Some of them are used directly. Another portion is transformed into ketone bodies. These molecules are more than just backup fuel. They are an alternative energy system, especially for the brain. In this phase, many people report strange changes: colder hands, a dry mouth, a faint odor on the breath, a feeling of mental distance or unexpected clarity. This is no coincidence. The body is just leaving its familiar mode. It is beginning to remember a state for which it was once designed. Not constant eating, but flexibility, between abundance and scarcity, between rest and movement, and the liver stands at the center of this decision. 12 to 16 hours after the last meal, a turning point is reached. The liver's glycogen stores are nearly exhausted. Sugar is scarcely available. Insulin levels remain low, stable, still. And it is precisely in this stillness that the body switches. This moment is referred to in science as the metabolic switch. The liver changes its role. It is no longer a storage unit, no longer a manager of surplus. It becomes an energy factory. Fatty acids are increasingly taken up and converted into ketone bodies. These ketones circulate in the bloodstream and reach the brain. For many neurons, they are a highly efficient fuel. And here, the experience divides. Some people report unexpected clarity, focused thinking, calm concentration. Others feel tired, weak, or internally empty. The difference lies not in fasting itself, but in how well the liver is prepared for this state. A body that has been trained for years, exclusively on constant sugar intake, reacts differently than a body that has learned to switch between energy sources. From an evolutionary perspective, this very flexibility is the normal state, not permanent supply, but adaptation. And at the center of this shift, working quietly and tirelessly, is the liver. 16 to 24 hours after the last meal, the body is in a completely different state than it was at the beginning of the fast. Ketone levels are significantly elevated. Insulin remains low. Energy supply is stable, but it comes from a new source. For the liver, this means the constant stress of food processing begins to ease. And right now, a phase begins that is almost never reached in modern daily life. The liver switches from supply to maintenance. Cellular cleansing processes increase. Damaged proteins, misfolded structures, old cellular components are identified, broken down, and recycled. This process is often summarized under the term autophagy, which literally means self-eating. But this is not about destruction. It is about order. The liver begins to restructure its internal system. In a world where food is available at all times, it almost never gets enough time for this. Breakfast follows dinner. Snacks fill every gap. The liver remains in constant operation for the outside and neglects the inside. Fasting interrupts this cycle, not through deprivation, but through pause. In this time window, fasting is no longer just a question of calories or weight loss. It becomes a biological signal, a signal that allows the liver to do what it was created to do. Not only distribute energy, but keep the system functional in the long term. When fasting is used consciously, moderately, and in the right context, it can provide the liver with significant relief, not through magic, but through biology. Studies show that periods of low insulin levels can reduce fat accumulation in the liver, a central factor in so-called fatty liver disease. At the same time, insulin sensitivity improves. The liver responds more precisely again to hormonal signals, instead of operating permanently in an overload mode. The shift in energy source from sugar to fat increases metabolic flexibility, the ability to switch efficiently between different fuels. And this very flexibility is one of the most important markers of a healthy metabolism. Fasting does not mean forcing the liver to do more. It means giving it enough time between meals to regulate itself. The benefits do not arise from fasting longer and longer. They arise from allowing the body to resume its natural cycles. Fasting is not a tool that is suitable for every body in every situation. What feels relieving for some can be a significant burden for others. Particular caution applies to people with eating disorders or a relevant medical history, pregnant and breastfeeding women whose bodies require a constant flow of nutrients, people with diabetes, especially when insulin or blood sugar lowering medications are being used, individuals with chronic illnesses, underweight, or severely limited resilience. In these cases, fasting can destabilize metabolism instead of improving it. It is also important to pay attention to the body's signals. Persistent dizziness, confusion, fainting, heart rhythm, disturbances, or extreme weakness are not good signs. They are an indication that the body is overwhelmed. Fasting must never become a battle against one's own organism, and it does not replace medical care. This content does not constitute medical advice. It is intended to create understanding, not to make diagnoses. Responsible care of one's own body always comes before any method. So what really happens to your liver when you don't eat for 24 hours? It does not become weaker. It does not shut down. On the contrary, it returns to the role it was evolutionarily designed for, not as a mere processor of food, but as the central organ of energy management, as the mediator between abundance and scarcity, as the silent guardian of internal order. Fasting does not force the liver to do more. It allows it to finally do the right thing. The real question, therefore, is not, should one fast or not, but rather, how long has it been since your liver had enough time to finish its work. If this video has changed the way you look at food, pauses, and your own body, share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to continue understanding what is really happening inside your body, when you eat, when you don't eat, when energy sources shift, subscribe to the channel. The body is constantly sending signals. The only question is, are we listening? Are we